SKYLINE presents Villette. The book is for Charlotte Brontë. Volume 1, Chapter 1, Breton. My godmother lived in a wholesome house in the clean and ancient town of Britain. Her husband's family had been residents there for generations, and bore, indeed, the name of their birthplace, Breton of Britain. Whether by coincidence, or because some remote ancestor had been a personage of sufficient importance to leave his name to the neighbourhood, I know not. When I was a girl, I went to Britain about twice a year, and well, I liked to visit. The house and its inmates especially suited me. The windows, the balcony outside, looking down on a fine antique street, where Sundays and holidays seemed always to abide. So quiet was its atmosphere, so clean its pavement. These things pleased me as well. One child is a household of grown people is usually made every much of. She was not young, as I remember her, but she is still handsome, tall, well-made, and though dark, for English women, yet wearing away the clearness of her in her brilliant cheeks, and its vivacity in a pair of fine, cheerful black eyes. People esteemed it a grievous pity that she had not conferred the complexion on her son, whose eyes were blue, though, even in boyhood, very piercing, and the colour of his long hair, such as friends did not venture to specify, except as the sun shone it, when they called it golden. He inherited the lines of his mother's features, however, also her good teeth, her stature, or the promise of her stature, though it was not yet full grown, and, what was better, her health without flaw, and her spirits of that tone of equality which are better than a fortune to the possessor. In the autumn of the year, I was staying at Britain. My grandmother, my good mother, having come in person to claim me of the kinsfolk with whom was at that time fixed my parentage residence. I believe she then plainly saw events coming, whose very shadow I scarce guessed, yet of which the faint suspicion sufficed to impart and settle sadness, and made me glad to change scene and society. Time always flowed smoothly for me at good mother's side, not with tumultuous swiftness, but blandly, like the gliding of a full river through a plain. My visits to her resembled the sojourn of Christian and hopeful, beside a certain pleasant stream, with the green trees on its bank, and meadows beautified with lilies all the year round. The charm of variety there was not, nor the excitement of incident, but I liked beasts so well, and sought stimulus so little, that when the lad came, I almost fell in a disturbance, and wished rather it had still held aloof. One day a letter was received, always the contents, evidently caused Mrs. Bretton, surprise and some concern. I thought at first it was from home, and trembled, expecting I knew not what the disastrous communication to me. However, no reference was made, and the cloud seems to pass. The next day, on my return from a long walk, I found as I entered my bedroom an unexpected change. In addition to my old French bed, in its shady recess, appears in a corner a small crib, draped with white, in addition to my mahogany chest of drawers. I saw a tiny rosewood chest. I stood still, gazed and considered. What are these things, the signs and tokens? I asked. The answer was obvious. The second guest is coming, as the Brit inspected other visitors. On descending to dinner, explanations ensued. A little girl, I was told, would shortly be my companion, the daughter of a friend and a distant relation of the late Dr. Bretton's. This little girl, it was added, had recently lost her mother, though indeed Mrs. Britton ere long subjoined, the loss was not so great as might at first appear. Mrs. Home it seems was the name, had been very pretty, but a giddy, careless woman who had neglected her child, and disappointed and disheartened her husband, so far from congenial that the union proved, separation at last ensued. Separation by mutual consent, not after any legal process. Soon after this event, the lady, having overexerted herself at a ball, caught cold, took a fever, and died of a very brief illness. Her husband, naturally a man of very sensitive feelings, and choked inexpressibly by two-sided communication of the news, could hardly, it seemed, now be persuaded by that some over-severity in his part, some deficiency, impatience, and indulgence had contributed to hasten her end. He had brooded over this idea till his spirits were seriously affected. The medical man insisted on travelling being tried as a remedy, and meanwhile Mrs. Bretton had offered to take charge of this little girl. And I hope, added my godmother in conclusion, the child will not be like her mamma, as silly and frivolous, a little flirt, as ever sensible man was weak enough to marry. For, said she, Mr. Home is a sensible man in his way, though not very practical. He's fond of science, and lives half his life in a laboratory, trying experiments, and think his butterfly wife could neither comprehend nor endure. And indeed, confessed my good mother, I should never have liked it myself. In answer to a question of mine, she further informed me that her late husband used to say Mr. Home had derived this scientific turn from a mentor, uncle, a French savant, for he came, it seems, of mixed French and Scottish origin, and had connections now living in France, of whom more than one wrote de before his name, and called himself noble. That same evening, at 9 o'clock, a servant was dispatched to meet the coach by which our little visitor was expected. Mrs. Bretton and I sat alone in the drawing room, waiting for her company, John Graham Bretton, being absent on a visit to one of his schoolfellows who lived in the country. My godmother read the evening paper while she waited. I sewed. It was a wet night. The rain lashed the panes, and the wind sounded angry and restless. "Poor child," said Mrs. Bretton from time to time. What weather for her journey! I wish you were safe here. The before 10 doorbell announced Warren's return. No sooner was the door opened, and I ran down into the hall. There lay the trunk and some bandboxes. Beside them stood a person like a nurse guard. And at the foot of the staircase was Warren, with a shallowed bundle in his arms. "Is that the child?" I asked. "Yes, miss." I would have opened the shawl and tried to get a peep at the face, but it was hastily turned from me to one's shoulder. "Put me down, please," said with a small voice when Warren opened the drawing room door. "I take off this shawl," continued the speaker, extracting with its minute hand the pin, and with a sort of fastidious haste doffing the clumsy wrapping. The creature, which now appeared, made a deft attempt to fold the shawl, but the drapery was much too heavy and large to be sustained or widened by those hands and arms. "Give it to Harriet, please," was then the direction. "And she can't put it away," this said. He turned and fixed his eyes on Mrs. Bretton. "Come here, little dear," said the lady. "Come and let me see if you are cold and done. Come and let me warm you at the fire." The child advanced promptly. Relieved of her wrapping, she appeared exceedingly tiny, but was a neat, completely fashioned little figure, light, slight and straight, seated on my grandmother's ample lap. She looked a mere doll. Her neck, delicate as wax, her head of silky curls increased, I thought, the resemblance. Mrs. Bretton talked in little found phrases as she chafed the child's hands, arms and feet. First she was considered with a wistful gaze, but soon a smile answered her. Mrs. Bretton was not generally a counting woman. Even with her deeply cherished son, her manner was rarely sentimental, often the reverse. But when the small strange smiled at her, she kissed it, asking, "What is my little one's name?" "Missy." "But besides Missy?" "Polly, Papa calls her." "Will Polly to be contented to live with me?" "Not always, but till Papa comes here. Papa is gone away." She shook her head expressively. "He will return to Polly and send for her." "Will he, ma'am? Do you know he will?" "I think so, but Harriet thinks not. At least, not for a long while. He's ill." Her eye filled. She drew her hand from Mrs. Bretton's and made a movement to leave her lap. It was at first resisted, but she said, "Please, I wish to go. I can see eyes too." She was allowed to sit down from her knee, and taking a footstool, she carried it to a corner where the shade was deep, and there seated herself. Mrs. Bretton, though commanding and in grave matters, even a peremptory woman, was often passive in trifles. She allowed the child her way. She said to me, "Take no notes at present." But I did take notes. I watched Polly with her small elbow on her small knee, her head on her hand. I observed her draw a square inch or two of pocket handkerchief from the door pocket of her door skirt, and then I heard her weep. Other children in grief or pain cry aloud, without shame or restraint, but as being wept, the tiniest occasional sniff testified to her emotion. Mrs. Britton did not hear it, which was quite as well. Play along. A voice issuing from the corner demanded, "May the bell be rung for Harriet?" I rung. The nurse was demanded and came. "Harriet, I must be put to bed," said the little mistress. "You must ask me my bed where my bed is." Harriet signified that she had already made that inquiry. Ask if you sleep with me, Harriet." "No, missy," said the nurse. "You are to share this young lady's room," designating me. Missy did not leave her seat, but I saw her eyes seek me. After some minutes silent scrutiny, she emerged from the corner. "I wish you, ma'am, good night," said she to Mrs. Britton, but she passed me mute. "Good night, Polly," I said. "No need to say good night, since we sleep in the same chamber," was the reply, with which she vanished from the drawing room. We heard Harriet propose to carry her up stairs. "No need," was again her answer. "No need, no need," and a small step toward Worthy up the staircase. I'm going to about on an hour afterwards. I found her still wide awake. She had arranged her pillow so as to support her little person in a sitting posture. Her hands, placed one within the other, rested quietly on the sheet, with an old-fashioned calm, most unchildlike. I abstained from speaking to her for some time, but just before extinguishing the light, I recommended her to lie down. By and by, was the answer. "May we take hold, missy?" She took some article of raiment from the chair at her crib side, and with it covered her shoulders. I suffered her to do as she pleased. Listening a while in the darkness, I was aware that she still wept under restraint, quietly and cautiously. On awaking with daylight, a trickling of water caught my ear. Behold! There was she risen her mouth in us too in the washstand, with pain and difficulty acquired the oar, which she could not lift, so as to put its contents into the basin. It was curious to watch her as she washed and dressed, so small, busy, and noiseless. Evidently, she was the accustomed to perform her own toilet, and the buttons, strings, hooks, and eyes of her difficulties, which she encountered with a perseverance good to witness. She folded her nightdress. She smoothed the drapery of her couch quite neatly, withdrawing it into a corner where she swept of the white curtain concealed her. She became still. I half rose, and it fenced my head to see how she was occupied, on her knees, with her forehead bent on her hands. I perceived that she was praying. Her nurse stopped at the door. She stood up. "I am dressed, Harriet," she said. "I have dressed myself, but I do not feel neat. Make me neat." "Why did you dress yourself, missy?" "Hush, speak low, Harriet, for fear of awaking the girl. Me. I now lay with my eyes shut. I dressed myself to learn again the time you left me. Do you want me to go? When you're cross, I have many a time wanted you to go, but not now. Tie my hair straight. Like my hair smooth, please. Your visage is straight enough, but particularly where you are. It must be tied again, please. To tie it again. There then. and I'm going to get that young lady to dress you. Oh, no, I can't. Why? She's a very nice young lady. I hope you mean to behave greatly to her, missy, and I'll show you it. She shall dress me on no account. Go, little thing. You're not passing the comb straight through my hair. Harriet, the line will be crooked. Oi, you're here to please. Does that suit? Pretty well. Why should I go now that I'm dressed? I'll take you in the breakfast room. Come then. They proceeded to the door. She stopped. Oh, Harriet, I wish this was Papa's house. I don't know these people. Be a good child, missy. I'm good, but I ache here. Putting her hands to her heart and moaning while she retreated. Papa! Papa! I rose myself and stared up to check the scene, but it was yet within bounds. Say good morning to the young lady, dictated Harriet. She said, good morning, and then followed her nurse from the room. Harriet temporarily after the same day to go to her own friends who lived in the neighbourhood. On descending I found Paulina, the try called herself Polly, but her name was Paulina Mary, seated at the breakfast table by Mrs. Bronte's side. A mug of milk stood before her. A morsel of bread filled her hand, which lay passive on the tablecloth. She was not eating. How we shall conciliate this little creature, said Mrs. Brontë to me. I don't know. She tastes nothing, and by Lou, she has no slept. I expressed my confidence in the facts of time and calmness. If she were to take a fancy to anybody in the house, she would soon settle. But not till then, replied Mrs. Brontë.